Western officials believe at least 1,000 North Korean soldiers have been killed in Ukraine. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has thanked the North Korean leader Kim Jong Un for providing troops to help Russia fight Ukraine.
Now, the US says that several hundred North Korean soldiers have been killed or injured while fighting for Russia in its war with Ukraine.
Kim Jong Un thought he had the perfect plan. Send 15,000 soldiers to Russia. Collect cash, food, technology, and battlefield data. Build his military into an unstoppable force. Watch his troops gain combat experience against NATO weapons that no North Korean soldier had ever faced before. Return them home as battle-hardened veterans ready to crush South Korea. Clean, profitable, risk-free. That was the plan. And then something happened that Kim never calculated. Something that broke open the most secretive military on Earth and exposed it. Its tactics, its weapons, its doctrine, its psychological vulnerabilities to South Korean, American, and Ukrainian intelligence analysts who are still processing everything they learned. On April 27, 2026, Kim Jong Un stood at the podium of the newly opened Memorial Museum of Foreign Military Operations in Pyongyang, a museum built specifically for North Korean soldiers killed fighting Russia's war in Ukraine, and publicly confirmed for the first time that his troops had standing orders to kill themselves rather than be captured, praising soldiers who unhesitatingly opted for self-blasting suicide attack in order to defend the great honor. Self-blasting, that is Kim's word, for suicide bombing yourself before surrendering. And the reason Kim had to build a suicide policy into his military's operating procedure in Ukraine is the same reason this museum exists. Because North Korea's battlefield performance in Europe was catastrophic in ways Pyongyang never admitted publicly, never explained to its own people, and never expected anyone outside the Hermit Kingdom to ever find out. Ukraine found out, South Korea found out, and now the world knows things about Kim's military that Kim spent decades and billions trying to hide. Before we reveal exactly what the two captured North Korean soldiers told Ukrainian and South Korean intelligence that shattered every assumption about the DPRK military's readiness and morale, why Kim's self-blasting order proves he was more terrified of intelligence leaks than of his soldiers dying, and what that reveals about what those soldiers actually know, how nearly 2,000 North Korean troops died in Kursk, while Russia used them as cannon fodder in frontal assaults without rear fire support, and why leaked footage showed their bodies heaped together after combat, what the soldier born in 2005 said when captured, that exposes the lie at the heart of Kim's entire military deployment, why the Memorial Museum lists only 280 graves when South Korean intelligence estimates 2,000 dead, and what that gap reveals about what Kim is hiding from his own people, how North Korea and Russia just signed a new military cooperation agreement for 2027 to 2031, and what Kim received in exchange for 15,000 soldiers and nearly 2,000 dead, and what happens when a regime that ordered its troops to suicide before capture now has to explain to 25 million people why it built a museum for men it's sent to die in someone else's war. Subscribe to Daily Military Talks right now and hit that bell. Because what just happened to North Korea and Ukraine is not a battlefield story. It is the story of the most secretive military on Earth being cracked open, and what spilled out is changing everything intelligence agencies thought they knew about Kim's army. We connect it right now. Here is what Kim said at the museum, and why confirming the suicide order is the most revealing thing he has ever said publicly. Kim Jong Un attended the inauguration of the Memorial Museum of Combat Feats at the Overseas Military Operations on April 26, 2026. A ceremony attended by Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov and Russian Parliamentary Speaker Vyacheslav Volodin, where Kim scattered earth over one fallen soldier's remains and placed flowers beside others whose bodies had been transferred to a mortuary. He scattered earth on graves. Kim Jong Un, the man who denies everything, who calls every accusation fabricated. Standing at a memorial for troops he spent a year insisting were not in Ukraine, scattering earth on their graves on live state television. Kim twice referred to soldiers who had self-blasted, describing them as heroes who unhesitatingly opted for self-blasting, suicide attack in order to defend the great honor, and stating they did not expect any compensation, though they performed distinguished feats. They died a heroic death. Heroes who did not expect compensation died a heroic death. Translation: your government sent you to die in Russia, ordered you to blow yourself up rather than surrender, gave you nothing in return, and called it honor. This acknowledgement, delivered at the inauguration of a memorial in Pyongyang for North Koreans who died in action, marks the first official confirmation by North Korea's government of the extreme battlefield suicide measure. First official confirmation, ever. Kim spent years denying his troops were even in Russia. Now he is publicly praising their suicide orders. Think about why Kim confirmed the suicide policy publicly. He did not have to. He could have praised the dead without mentioning how they died or what they were ordered to do before dying. He confirmed it because he needed to frame it as heroism before someone else framed it as horror. Because the story of North Korean soldiers in Ukraine was already leaking, through captured prisoners, through Ukrainian intelligence releases, through South Korean spy agency briefings, and Kim needed to get ahead of it. The suicide order confirmation is not a boast, it is damage control. And the fact that Kim felt he needed to do damage control tells you exactly how badly things went in Kursk. Here is what the captured soldiers revealed, and why 2 wounded men in a Kyiv interrogation room cracked open the most secretive military on Earth. On January 11th, 2025, Ukraine captured 2 North Korean soldiers alive in the Kursk region, the first live captures Ukraine had announced since North Korean troops entered the war, with Ukrainian military intelligence stating the capture provides many useful opportunities, not only for operational intelligence, but as a political tool to reveal DPRK involvement in Russia's military actions. Useful opportunities. That is intelligence language for. These 2 men know things that no outsider has ever been allowed to know about North Korea's military. One soldier, born in 2005, just 19 or 20 years old, said he believed he was going to take part in a training exercise, not combat. I came out on January 3rd, saw my comrades die beside me, hid in a bunker, and then got injured on January 5th. Believed he was going for training. A North Korean soldier deployed to a foreign war on another continent did not know he was going to war. He was told it was an exercise. Kim's military sent 15,000 soldiers to Russia by lying to them about where they were going and what they would do when they got there. That is not a military doctrine. That is a regime so afraid of dissent that it cannot even tell its own soldiers the truth about their own deployment. One soldier said he would prefer to stay in Ukraine rather than return to North Korea, stating he possibly faces execution or lengthy imprisonment for having been captured. Execution. For surviving. For being wounded in combat in someone else's war against his will. That is the North Korean military contract. You die for the regime or the regime kills you for not dying. South Korea's National Intelligence Service confirmed its participation in questioning the North Korean soldiers, reporting that memos found on dead North Korean soldiers indicated they had been ordered to commit suicide before being captured, and that one soldier, facing capture, shouted, "General Kim Jong Un," and tried to detonate a hand grenade before being shot, shouted Kim's name, pulled a grenade, got shot. That soldier's last act was dying for a general who built a museum with 280 graves while 2,000 of his men rotted in Kursk. Here is what the battlefield actually looked like, and why Russia used North Korean soldiers as cannon fodder the way Kim uses his own people. Leaked footage showed the lifeless bodies of up to 20 North Korean soldiers heaped together after combat near Kruglenkoye in Russia's Kursk region, with Ukrainian OSINT group Informnapalm stating, "This video confirms that the Russian command continues to massively use Koreans as cannon fodder for infantry assaults on Ukrainian army positions." Cannon fodder, heaped together. The Ukrainian OSINT group was not using hyperbole. South Korea's National Intelligence Service reported that North Korean soldiers were being thrust ahead of Russian units into direct combat without rear fire support, with a retired South Korean brigadier general stating the high death toll was predictable because they were not sufficiently prepared for an unfamiliar mission. Ahead of Russian units, without rear fire support, sent first into positions designed to absorb casualties before the main assault. North Korean lives used as expendable shields. South Korea's spy agency reported that more than 300 North Korean soldiers were killed and around 2,700 injured in Kursk, an estimate that rose over subsequent months. By April 2026, South Korean intelligence estimated approximately 2,000 North Korean troops had died during the campaign. 2,000 dead in someone else's war. On a continent most North Koreans cannot find on a map. And the memorial Kim just built in Pyongyang contains graves for approximately 280 soldiers. The gap between 280 graves and 2,000 estimated dead is not an administrative discrepancy. It is the number of deaths Kim is hiding from his own population. 1,720 families in North Korea have no grave to visit. No official acknowledgement, no explanation. just silence from a regime that told their sons they were going on a training exercise. Here's what North Korea's soldiers actually faced in combat, and why the battlefield exposed every weakness Kim spent decades concealing. The NIS assessed that North Korean soldiers are struggling to adapt to drones and other elements of modern warfare, disadvantaged by crude Russian tactics of overwhelming Ukraine through mass troop deployments without sufficient coordination, and that soldiers were further hampered by unfamiliarity with the terrain and climatic conditions. Struggling to adapt to drones. That sentence is the most important military intelligence finding to emerge from North Korea's Ukraine deployment. Kim spent years and billions building hypersonic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and nuclear warheads. His ground troops cannot adapt to the same cheap drones Ukraine has been using since 2022. The gap between North Korea's strategic weapons and its tactical ground capability is a canyon, and Ukraine just measured it precisely. Western analysts concluded that Kim intentionally sent troops and equipment into battle partly to test them under real conditions. Fueling speculation, this could be a precursor to North Korea engaging in a future conflict with South Korea. A precursor. Kim sent 15,000 soldiers to Ukraine to learn what modern war looks like before he starts his own. But what he learned is not what he expected. He expected his elite Storm Corps soldiers to perform with the ferocity and discipline that North Korean military propaganda promises. Instead, they died in heaps in Kursk, could not adapt to drone warfare, were lied to about their own deployment, and surrendered when given the chance, one of them begging to stay in Ukraine rather than go home. Here is what Kim received in exchange, and why the Russia-North Korea deal reveals the transaction behind the deaths. In exchange for sending troops, Pyongyang received cash, food, and technical assistance, with North Korea and Russia set to sign a new military cooperation agreement for 2027 to 2031, further cementing their defense ties. Cash, food, technical assistance, a 5-year military cooperation deal. That is the price Russia paid for 15,000 North Korean soldiers, nearly 2,000 of whom died. The Memorial Museum also features an exhibition of military equipment captured in Ukraine, including Leopard 2A4 and M1A1 Abrams tanks, Marder infantry fighting vehicles, AMX-10RC armored reconnaissance vehicles, and mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, Western hardware, on display in Pyongyang. Kim's engineers studying Leopard 2 and Abrams tank systems, the exact vehicles they would face if South Korea, the US, and NATO allies ever mobilized on the Korean Peninsula. Kim paid for that intelligence in blood. 2,000 soldiers, 31 graves in a museum, and a publicly confirmed order to suicide that the whole world can now read. One thing is absolutely certain. Kim Jong Un publicly confirmed on April 27, 2026, that North Korean soldiers were ordered to kill themselves before capture, praising self-blasting as heroism at a memorial museum opened in Pyongyang. The museum contains approximately 280 graves, while South Korean intelligence estimates approximately 2,000 North Korean soldiers died in Ukraine, a gap of nearly 1,700 deaths Kim is concealing from his own population. 2 North Korean soldiers were captured alive in Kursk in January 2025, one born in 2005 who said he was told he was going for training, not war. One captured soldier said he would rather stay in Ukraine than return home for fear of execution. Ukrainian intelligence stated the captures provided useful opportunities for operational intelligence about the most secretive military on Earth. North Korean troops were used as cannon fodder in frontal assaults without rear fire support, struggling to adapt to drone warfare that has been standard in Ukraine since 2022. Russia and North Korea signed a new military cooperation agreement extending to 2031. Kim's museum displays captured Western tanks including Leopard 2A4 and M1A1 Abrams. Intelligence on the exact hardware he would face if he attacks South Korea. So here is what happens next. Kim sent 15,000 soldiers to Ukraine to collect battlefield data and return home as hardened veterans. What he actually collected was the most comprehensive external intelligence assessment of North Korean military capability ever assembled by Ukraine, South Korea, and the United States simultaneously. His troops could not adapt to drones. His soldiers did not know they were going to war. His casualty rate was catastrophic enough to require a suicide order just to prevent intelligence leaks from prisoners. His memorial museum hides 1,700 deaths from the North Korean public. And the man who built a nuclear arsenal to make himself untouchable just confirmed, in his own words, at a public ceremony on state television, that his ground forces are ordered to blow themselves up rather than let the outside world know what they know. Kim thought Ukraine was his testing ground. It turned out to be everyone else's. Stay tuned.